all leadership is about leading other people. And what happens is when we don't show up authentic as leaders, we tend to operate from a space of reaction rather than from a grounded space of our vision and our values. And so when we are clear on who we are and we worked on our vision of who we are and then that of the company, authenticity naturally happens.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Tech Leaders Playbook. Today, I'm very honored to have Tiffany Houser as our guest. We're thrilled to have Tiffany. She brings a wealth of knowledge. She's a seasoned founder and executive coach and advisor with over 15 years of experience helping leaders and startups. Most importantly, in her work at Evolve and Self-Worth Advantage, she's helping leaders be more authentic, understand themselves, and which in return will help people drive growth, inspire their teams, and frankly, hopefully, be better and happier people. Right? That's really all we care about. Thank you for being here, Tiffany. Let's start with your awesome journey. What brought you to this place?
Yeah, thank you, Avetis, and thank you to everyone who's listening. I just was talking to someone else earlier today, and our story, or my story with Evolve, it wasn't planned. I didn't set out to found a executive coaching or leadership development company. It just happened. And really, when I first started coaching, I was a certified health coach, which I thought was great. I was like, oh, this is wonderful. Who doesn't want to be healthy and feel more energized and get more sleep? And so as that journey really quickly in the beginning unfolded, I think it was my third client, we started talking about his job and how his sleep and his energy and his weight was a product of the way he felt about his role, which he was a senior leader in a consultancy firm. And so that really interested me, and I kept following and pulling at that thread. And with all of my other clients, I started inquiring. I'm like, so tell me about your job. Tell me about your professional, the quality of your professional life. And really all of them, everyone I coached in the beginning, all roads led back to how fulfilled or how happy they were with how they were earning a living. Some of them, it was great, and our work unfolded really quickly. Some of them, it was a struggle. And one of the quick fixes, it wasn't about what they were eating or what they were, what they weren't doing fitness wise. It really was they weren't in the right role, or they wanted to start their own company and they just felt like it wasn't the right path or it wasn't possible. And so following that thread, I became certified in leadership coaching. And then as I started coaching specifically leaders in enterprise companies, they started bringing me in to coach their teams, to lead speaking engagements and all hands sessions at their leadership retreats. And so they put my business together for me. I just had to put some specific pricing and structure to it. Yet I never had to write a formal business strategy, which for my entrepreneurs listening, it's not always the way it happens, because this is my fifth company I founded so far. Wow. Yeah, it's been a roller coaster.
What an interesting pivot. You actually fell into hopefully your dream career accidentally, basically.
Absolutely.
It sounds like you were, you got a little lucky, and more importantly, you were listening in a deep level, because you could have easily said food, diet, exercise, whatever, sleep, great, but it sometimes is beyond that. There's so much more to our lives than that. And like you said, work is 8, 9, 10 hours a day, which represents 60% of our day usually, right?
Yeah.
So if you're stressed, if you're not, sleeping or whatever, it takes care of everything. And if you can't go to the gym or you can't eat healthy because of the choices, and it all bleeds into that. When you and I spoke, I think we talked about the importance of connecting with authenticity to unlock breakthroughs. Tell us about like a personal moment with one of your customers that when you found that kind of thing, it transformed their leadership.
Let's see. Well, one of my clients, she did hire me to support her starting her own business. And really, when we got down to the root of it, it was the relationship she had with her boss that wasn't working. So before we started coaching and unpacking the layers and really looking at what it actually, what her experience actually was and what it wasn't, it just was the quality of the relationship with her boss. So she thought, oh, I should start my own firm. I should be out on my own, which is great. Yet before we work on that plan and that strategy together, I want to make sure we're working on facts and actuals and not the limitations or the stories our belief system makes up. And I'm so glad we did with her, because what we really discovered is she had a challenge and a struggle with being honest and setting boundaries. And so she let her boss treat her a certain way. It's not as though he was necessarily a tyrant or toxic or, a micromanager, whatever you want to call him. It was also, sure, he could have been that, he might have been that. Yet the piece we can only work on is her. We can't change her boss.
Of
We
course.
can't change the environment, but we can change her and how she approaches and how she addresses the quality of it. So when we looked at it, her being authentic was her speaking her truth and having honest, clear conversations with him to simply let him know how she was feeling and how his behavior, if you will, was impacting her productivity, her engagement, her performance with her team, how she was leading her team. And really, that was not a easy thing for her to even talk about at first.
How did it turn out?
Oh, she addressed it, because what we discovered through our coaching is that she's never really been honest with anyone in her life except for her friends, like her
Wow.
close group of friends. And so she saw that was an issue that she needed to break through. And so we just created some simple steps, and one step at a time, because honesty, transparency, especially when we're making up stories that we're going to hurt someone's feelings,
Yeah.
or it's going to generate a bad or unfruitful result. Like in her case, I might get fired with being honest with my boss. So we went step by step to peel it back. And yes, she ultimately, and these conversations were not explicit. Hey, I feel XYZ around you. It was, what's layer one? What can we find out about him or about you in layer one? And then get the data, come back and workshop it, and then go deeper and then deeper. And then really what's crazy now is they're actually friends. They
Wow.
still work together. And she started a side business, which she is completely honest and transparent about with her company, because she has a whole Instagram page around it, because it was always something that she wanted to do. And so what we created for her was a win-win. She was able to explore that opportunity of going out on her own, and she was able to, what we call, clean up that relationship with her boss, which was really cleaning up that relationship she had around the stories she was making up about hurting other people's feelings, and about, when I am honest, bad things happen: rejection, termination, or causing, other people to feel a certain way. So it was quite interesting, the journey.
Sounds like she was making a kind of a gut decision to start a company, not because she wanted to start a company or she was passionate or whatever it was. She was doing it almost to run away from a boss she wasn't communicating well with. And I'm
Yep.
sure most of it was on him, maybe some of it was on her. But what a great opportunity to kind of, like you said, clean up that relationship, make the best of it, and it sounds like they're both winning. So that's a testament to you stepping in and unpacking and cleaning. You hear this word a lot, authentic leadership. What does it actually mean at a deep level? And why is it a game changer for those that are authentic leaders or learn to become authentic leaders?
Yeah, I'm going to go with the game changer, because really all leadership is about leading other people. Sure, as founders, as entrepreneurs, we're also leading the product, we're leading the service, but really at the core, we're leading other people. Even those who are listening who are solopreneurs, and maybe you don't have a team. You do. You might have a tech person, you might have, someone who handles your books or your legal. So you do have a team. And really the authentic piece really, really supports, because when I or you or anyone listening can be myself, when I'm running my business, delivering my business, sharing, whether it's pitching, proposing my business, and I am not faking it, I am not performing, I am not trying to do it the way other people do it, even though they are successful at doing it, I'm doing it in a way that is authentic and organic to me, so that, when I am booked, when I do get hired, I am delivering the same product. So whatever the product is, or whatever I said in that proposal or pitch, whatever it is, that it matches. And what happens is, when we don't show up authentic as leaders, we tend to operate from a space of reaction rather than from a grounded space of our vision and our values. And so we constantly got to keep up the performance of reacting, 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 because we never set the base of authenticity. This is who I am. This is how I show up. Sometimes I get big energy. I'll speak loudly and I use certain words, but you know that because I'm sharing this with you up front, and it's how I consistently show up. So you're not going to be surprised, and I won't have to react to you reacting to me reacting, because I'm being exactly who I am. And really that starts with our vision of who we are, not what our company is. Because a lot of leaders forget that, even when you're starting out. Yeah. Who are you first, as the leader, as the founder? What does that mean? And then even that question you asked me in the beginning, like, what's the journey? How did you get here? What is important to you about going on this journey? Because you and I both know the journey of being a founder or an entrepreneur, it is not, and yeah, it's a roller coaster. And so when we are clear on who we are and we worked on our vision of who we are and then that of the company, authenticity naturally happens, because we are operating from a space of, we know what we want, we know why we're doing it, and it's unfolding that way. And we can use that vision to be our base and our beacon to continue operating from as we scale, as we grow, as we go through turbulence, and as the roller coaster goes down a twisty hill.
Being authentic for me, it's like having, a company has core values that hopefully you live by. I think as humans, we have to have our own core values, our red lines, our willingness to walk away. I mean, we all want to be liked, but hopefully we don't need to be liked, because being a leader is tough. If you just do everything to be liked, then you're going to be in trouble very quickly. And I guess a question for you that's important too is, many leaders feel overwhelmed by the pressure to be perfect or to be this amazing person for their team, especially in a generation where young people are being fed propaganda, frankly, if I could be honest, right? They're being told what they should demand of their workforce and what their boss needs to be. And it's really funny. It never turns it around and says, hey, you also should be on time and focused and work when you're at work. And it doesn't do that, right? It's very one-sided. It's propaganda. So there's that pressure on leaders to not only perform, not only to employ folks, not only to eat last, take care of their team, but to also always feel like they're perfect. How do you, when you're coaching people, how do you coach these leaders to navigate these feelings and be vulnerable enough to understand that this is a thing, but be strong enough to stand by their own values?
Yeah. And it's interesting because I was listening to one of your other episodes with Emily, and she was sharing about perfectionism, was led to one of her failures. And the first thing I share, because perfectionism is one of our top ways we compromise our self-worth, and it's one of our top leadership insecurities, perfectionism. And so the first thing I let people know is there's nothing wrong or bad about trying to be perfect. And what if you looked at it as you being passionate, that you care so much about your product, your service, your clients, your industry, whatever, you're aiming for. You care so much about it that you want it to be perfect, that you want yourself to be perfect. And we all know from day one, and it's been shoved in our face, there's no such thing as perfectionism or being perfect. And really, then we move on into, let's notice, are we using this word? How are we using this in our language, in how we talk to each other? Are we using it in our proposals, in our pitches, in our conversations with our clients? Make sure we're not setting that up for us to, unknowingly try to shoot for when it doesn't exist. So finding other words and ways to talk about what it is we really are aiming for. So, your guest Emily said excellence. I love excellence. I am always shooting for excellence. But have we defined excellence? We as leaders get to define whatever it is we're aiming for. Some leaders might be aiming for integrity or greatness or connect, whatever it is we're aiming for. The next piece is defining it. And then the piece after that is sharing it. So once we define it, and if you get real leaders co-define. They ask around, what does excellence mean to you? What does integrity mean to you? So we're not using one aspect or one perspective of a word or one aspect of a description. And then once we gather that and we land on what the description of excellence or integrity or mindfulness means, we share it. So what happens is we put it on our website, right? We have great mission statements on our websites, our core values are on our website. Yet have we really sat down and shared that with the team, with our people? And how is that baked in and woven into the way we talk about our clients, to the way our product delivers or the way our service delivers, what actually the result is or the output of the product or service? And now we are not wavering outside of values, core values, or anything like that, because A, we know what we're talking about. B, we defined it. And now C, we shared it. And we'll go further. D, it's integrated into ourself as a leader, into the team culture, into the product and service, and so on and so forth. Because otherwise, yeah, perfectionism, it catches all of us. Because perfectionism, another top leadership insecurity a lot of us have, or a trap we fall into, is comparison. I think I said it even earlier. Like I used to do that about certain things with my clients. Like, oh, we got to get the best result. And if we keep shooting for the best result, we miss all the other results that are in between where we are right now and the best result.
It's like living in the gap versus the gain. I don't know if you've read that book.
Oh, you are speaking my language. I love that book so much.
Good. I forgot the name of the book, but I think it was
The Gap and the Gain.
The Gap and the Gain. Great.
Yeah.
Because you easily can get into that trap. We should be further. I wish we had a better this or better that and made this, but you don't live in the fact that look at the gains we've made over the last 6 months, a year, or whatever, or your life. So I like that. That's very good. What are some common blind spots you notice founders or executive leaders have, and how do you help them overcome that? Because that's a very valuable thing to find your blind spots. A lot of times we don't know them, hence why they're called blind spots.
Yeah, and I'm just going to go piggyback off of the gap and the gain. One of the biggest ones we see quite often is in this right-wrong dichotomy, how the way we talk about things, the way we feel and perceive things, they're either right or wrong. And there's no middle ground. And really, when we do that to ourselves, we are not in our growth mindset. So when we look at something being wrong or bad, like, oh, that's wrong, or what did I do wrong? How can I improve? What can I focus on instead? We tend to leave ourselves and our team in a disempowered state. And really, some people are like, well, isn't it just we should look at wrong the way we're looking at wrong? I'm like, it's also the way we look at right. Because sometimes if, we're falling into that perfectionist trap or that comparison trap, we forget if we're not right, you're thinking you're wrong. So I need to be right. I need to be right. I need to be right. Because if I'm not right, I'm wrong. I'm wrong. I'm wrong. And so the blind spot is, how are we communicating with each other? And really, what is it that we're making up about mistakes, failures, setbacks, whatever is happening? Are we making up that it is bad, it is wrong? Or are we looking at it as through our growth mindset lens and looking at it as an opportunity to grow, an opportunity to debrief? What worked about this? Because Avetis, something worked about everything that has failed. Sure. We didn't get to iPhone, where are we, 17 now, without something working about 1 through 16. Absolutely. Something worked about them. And so it's noticing your mindset and where you go with that right, wrong energy, even noticing it with rejection with clients when they say no to a proposal, or you proposed, it cost $50,000, but they're coming in and we only have 35, and you're in your, oh, something's wrong or bad about what I put together, rather than stepping into your growth mindset. Oh, okay. Or your agility or innovative mindset as a leader or a salesperson, and thinking about, okay, great, 35,000. Where did you come up with that number? Tell me more. Getting curious instead of thinking, oh no, it's only 35,000. We can't do this deal, or, getting into the disempowered mindset where there's no win, there's no solution in that. And so that's a really big one we see. And the other big one we see is, again, not focusing on your team as individuals and only focusing on them as a collective, and really looking at your team performance as them out there. They're not performing, they're not productive enough, they're not engaged enough. Instead of also looking at yourself as the leader, and this is what you created, this is the team you assembled, they're following your lead, your business plan, your fill in the blank XYZ. And so, really, the pieces are that right, wrong energy and understanding how I can be neutral, looking at my team as sure a collective, but also looking at them individually as well and what would support them. And I'll remember it in a moment.
Bring it
But
up when you
yeah,
remember it.
yeah. Well, I just said it. So anyone listening can backtrack. It just literally fell out of my head.
The Tiffany, there's one concept on that, and you'll probably hear me saying it on some of my podcasts. Is as a leader, it's always my fault. So that's such an easy thing to once you say it, it's so much easier to take blame because even if it's not your fault, it's your fault because you hired that person. If you really think they're terrible, it's your fault. Why did you hire them? Right? And there's always a reason that it comes back to you as the leader of whatever tribe you're
Yep.
leading, whether it's it's a company or a team or whatever. So that's one concept, and two, I agree with you. When you talk with groups, the person who didn't do a good job is like, well, they're not talking about me. And the person who's working their butts off and you were not talking about, they're thinking, I can't believe they don't appreciate me. I work my ass off. And so I do agree with you. I think general statements towards a group, you all aren't working hard enough, or you all aren't doing your job, you all aren't following our excellence model, following our best practices, typically gets people confused because sometimes they're doing it, but they're in that group. And sometimes they're not doing it, but they don't think it's them. So I do agree. Look at everyone individually and have individual conversations. Everything's customized. And
Yeah.
every single person likes to be managed differently, right? Some people
Absolutely.
love to be talked about in front of the team and constantly cheerleaded. Other people don't like it. They're uncomfortable. So you have to understand those small details and lead the way they like to be led, which is challenging, especially the bigger your team is, right?
Yeah, and that's one of the things we work on with founders in particular is supporting them with developing or creating and implementing, not just creating it, but implementing a formal leadership development strategy, which could also be called a talent or people development strategy. Because if there's nothing holding the talent or people aspect of your company together, you have no people strategy, it's going to go all over the place. And we see it all the time when we're hired in the beginning. I'm like, yeah, I can see why there are breakdowns on the team and in departments because what's holding that? There's no glue holding anyone together except for the product development and the business development. Those are stellar. Where's the people development? Where's the people strategy? And that usually, and what's funny is if you ever go to a roadshow or an entrepreneur or founder event and they ask, well, what is your biggest challenge as a founder? Most of them will say the human capital side of it.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And most of
Every
them do not,
business.
yeah. And then most of them do not have a formal people or leadership development strategy in place. And development is key in there because when they start, they are not going to be in the same role or same position for eternity or the life cycle that they are with your company. Even if they're in the same role, they're going to develop and evolve. Otherwise, you're not getting the ROI out of them. You're not getting the full potential out of them. If they keep producing at the same level quarter after quarter, year after year,
Yep.
what's that?
What's
What's the point of
changing?
that?
What's changing?
Yeah.
Well, you're absolutely right. In fact, being part of groups like YPO, Vistage, and some other no-name but amazing groups I've been part of, I've been in a room with a tech company, a startup, to a plumbing company, $80 million, to a solar company, to whatever it is. It doesn't matter. People are people, and managing people is very, very challenging. But I'm sure working for not such great leaders is also challenging. So
Oh, yeah.
that's right. It's a very, very, and the bigger the company gets, the more those weaknesses I feel like grow. You
100%.
right. You focus
100%.
you focus on developing trust and self-worth. You talk about a lot in leaders. Can you share a story of a leader you coached and who experienced a breakthrough? And more importantly, what the hell does trust and self-worth in leaders even mean?
Yeah, it means everything. I mean, just think about when you think about being a leader and you're leading a team, that's all about relationships. The relationship you have with yourself and the relationship you have with your people on your team, your colleagues, your clients. You're not building, but you're in relationships all the time. And the number one aspect of being in a relationship is trust. I mean, think about relationship with partner, spouse, children, family. We want trust. We want a trusting relationship. We want to know we can count on you, you can count on me, and so on and so forth. And so the number one thing that leaders struggle with is trust. And it's specifically trusting themselves. And as an executive coach, I am, I guess, privileged that I get to know this, that people trust me enough to share this in our private conversations, because this is something most leaders will never talk about. They'll never admit to, they won't address because they're ashamed of it. And so all relationships are built on trust. And really the most overlooked one leaders and founders miss is that relationship they have with themselves, which is where the self-worth piece comes in, because your trust is, it comes from your self-worth, your ability to understand how worthy and valuable you are. It has nothing to do with any feedback, any wins, any losses. It has nothing to do with how anyone treats you, because it's yours. Hence why it's called self-worth. There is no high self-worth, there is no low self-worth. You either are grounded in your self-worth or you are choosing to compromise it. And this concept is rarely talked about in leadership or founder circles, because what that means when we're compromising our self-worth, we tend to feel like an imposter. I'm not good enough. I'm not smart enough. I don't have enough funding. I'm not polished enough. My pitch or my deck isn't slick enough, whatever, and not enoughness we're making up. And really what also comes with that is all of the other insecurities that, two of which we talked about: perfectionism, comparison, overworking our team or ourself. So doing more, that's an insecurity. And another big one is people pleasing. So as I said in the beginning, we will yes people because we think we don't want to hurt anyone's feelings, when it's really us just protecting our feelings. And so the reason a lot of my work is focused on trust and self-worth, because when you as a leader can transform your experience around trust and your own self-worth, you are able to, you increase your agility by four folds. Like, you're agile, your decision making is on point. You're able to be honest and transparent with yourself and your team, your investors, your clients, whomever, because you're not attached to the outcome. The outcome is the outcome. And you have it in you to shift the outcome the next time because you're gathering data. You're not stuck in, oh, we lost, or I got rejected, they said no, or we made a mistake, or it's okay. Doesn't mean I'm wrong or I'm bad or I'm terrible. It just means our approach, the way we approached it, didn't work. That's it. Doesn't mean anything about our identity. And just like that right wrong piece, that's a huge facet that pokes at our trust and our ability to understand how worthy and valuable we are, because we're constantly thinking about how wrong and how bad either we are or someone else is. Because even you thinking these thoughts about other people, judging other people, it's a reflection of how you feel about yourself. And so we call it a small hinge that swings big doors. Because if you ever look at a door, the hinges are way smaller than the door. And that's what trust and self-worth are. You don't need to read all these books and go to all these seminars and have all this coaching. When you're able to transform your experience with trust and your self-worth, it just swings so much open, and it has a ripple effect. Your team and your colleagues and your clients, they all catch on, because we're not judging ourselves. We're not beating ourselves up. We're not feeling undeserving. Because if we're handing over or presenting a $50,000 proposal, but thinking, oh, I hope they say yes, that energy is not going to bring back and reciprocate back into a complete confident yes.
What if some of those insecurities are legitimate and they are real weaknesses that are going to, okay. So what happens in that case?
First off, if you feel that way, it's legitimate. There's no illegitimate. It's just the way you're resourcing and regulating yourself through. Are you believing it as truth and only truth? That's it. I am not worthy. I am not smart enough. Is that the truth of what's really going on? Or is there so much more out there that's available that could also be the truth? Okay. Because when you identify with, I am not good enough, my deck is wrong, I'm a failure, I'm never going to close another deal, or this company's that, you're identifying as that. And it's not legitimate. Now that piece is not legitimate, but you're
Sure.
feeling it is legit. I'm feeling it, so there's something there, always legitimate. But the reality and the truth and the actuals, because that feeling is an assumption. All of our feelings are
Yeah.
assumptions, by the way. They're all assumptions. They're our interpretation of whatever it is we're
Wow.
experiencing in the moment. Because haven't you felt some way, had a feeling, and then 5 minutes
Of
later you
course.
feel different about the same thing because you collected some data, you collected some actuals, or it just, I don't know, sometimes it just magically shifts, which is
So good.
so awesome. But yeah, so the legitimacy of our feelings is, yep, all of them are legitimate, but it's how you resource and how you regulate and navigate through to something useful. Or you can sit in the beat up and the insecurity of perfectionism, comparison, not enoughness, whatever that is. And I really hope, listeners, that's not what you're doing. Well, to be honest, a lot of us are doing that, but I hope you have some form of resourcing to navigate through, because that first form of resourcing is self awareness. Oh, I just noticed I just thought I wasn't good enough, or I noticed I was comparing myself to him, or I just noticed like I could have turned this in an hour ago, but I'm still like tweaking it and,
Good,
and
really
doing
good.
all
You
this.
created the self-wealth advantage framework. What's the core principles? How does this help leaders overcome these insecurities and these challenges?
First of all, what I called it helps them immediately because self worth is rarely talked about in professional settings.
Yeah.
It's more of like a personal development or like a self help type topic. So just having the courage to, and the provocateur in me, like, let's just, because one of the concepts of how I'm trained and certified to coach, we say name it to tame it. So if we're talking around it and trying to sugarcoat what's actually going on, how are we going to resolve it? So the name and the title of it is one. Number two is there's a framework. So it's not like we're going out into the existential world of our feelings. There's step one is identify what is and what isn't. Step two is understanding that piece. Step three and four, I put them together. It's reconciling and resolving that. And I want to jump back to step two because most leaders and most type A people, most driven, ambitious people, they want to skip part two, which is understanding what has you feel that way and where it's coming from. Because once they identify in step one, they want to jump right into reconciling and resolving. They want to get right to work, which I love. Yet your results may not sustain themselves or might take longer if you don't understand where those feelings are coming from and what causes them in you and what you're making up about them. And then the final and fifth step is the transformation. Because even if you do something once or twice, you may not be transforming it into trust or into agility or into innovation, whatever it is that you want to
Sure.
transform this insecurity into. So that's the final piece.
It's
So
huge.
that's what works for them, and we deliver it in coaching. We do learning and development sessions. We have an online course. So if you want to work on this in private at your own pace, we have a 7 module course that you can do in the comfort of your home. Or what I recommend is you have your company invest in it for you.
Very good. You talked about a lot of different things. What's the number one thing holding, besides self-worth, entrepreneurs back, or frankly any leader, any professional? What's holding them back from not only being successful, but more importantly, being happy?
I think it goes back to where you started with me, just knowing who you are. Who are you as a leader? So, who are you in relationship to your company? You are not just the CEO or the chief business development officer. Who are you in relationship to this company? And then the second piece is what's important about that to you? And, Simon Sinek would say that's your why. So when you ask me about happiness, and I translate that to be fulfillment, because for me, I want to be more than happy. I want to be fulfilled. I want to be full of purpose. I wake up like ready to go. I'm like, I can't wait to go serve and deliver my product, my service, and all of that. Talk about what I do because I know my why. I know who I am. And there are moments when I'm evolving and I don't know who I am at the next level in my life. And I'm like, okay, I get to
Yeah,
go see who this version of me is, because a new
sure.
insecurity will pop up. A new thing will challenge me. And I get to go learn about that instead of trying to just power through or just avoid it. I'll get through this somehow. Because every time we think like that and we do that to ourselves, whatever that thing is has a compounding effect, and it gets bigger and bigger, and the price we pay gets bigger and bigger, and it costs us more and more down the line. And you could see this play out in the relationships you have outside of your company, with your partner, with your children, with your family, with your friends. The more you avoid something or act as if something is not happening or is in breakdown or something new just occurred, the more it compounds into most likely a breakdown or a
Amazing.
challenge in the relationship. So you get to look at yourself,
At that
learn who
time,
you
because people
are.
do change. They grow, they shrink.
Absolutely. That's why we call the
It's good.
company Evolve. So we are evolving as human beings. Our businesses are evolving. Our market or our industry is constantly evolving. And we get to check in at all those moments to ground in and come back to the beacon, come back to what matters and what
That's
this is
awesome.
all for.
Leadership at high levels often feels lonely and overwhelming, right? Whether they say it's lonely at the top, and sometimes it's your company and it's lonely at the top. Sometimes it's not your company. You work for a company and it's lonely at the top. So how can organizations create environments that better support their leaders? Because I don't feel like there's enough focus on that. The focus is usually just make your people happy. As long as they're happy and don't leave, it's all good, and you can drive them to your vision. But sometimes you're not happy, you're frustrated, you're lonely, you know what I mean. You have to carry the weight of so much. You have to sit there and carry the weight
Yeah.
of every single person's issues that day, their personal, their business, and sometimes you have bigger issues bigger fish to fry. How do you deal with this? How should organizations deal with this?
Yeah, it goes back to what I said earlier. Integrate a formal leadership development strategy. That in and of itself, if you have nothing that serves as glue and foundation, your leaders are going to feel that way, and it'll ripple out into their teams. And so it's just a matter of taking a moment to get clear. And these leadership development strategies and plans, they're not large scale. It could be 3 things that we focus on. And it's really about being there and checking in at least once a quarter. I mean, that's when we turn in our earnings or we look at our books. We get to look at ourselves. And also, it's a really complex question to answer because, like you said, there's so many different types of people listening in. But really, if you're listening in right now, this is your opportunity to take a look at yourself and look to where you can be supported. What would support you right now in venting or, brainstorming or just really unpacking some of the things that you're dealing with yourself as a leader and your team? Maybe it's your relationship with your revenue goals. Maybe it's your relationship with a specific person on your team. Maybe it's your relationship with, product innovation, where it's going, where it's not. And just really what would support you specifically right now in this moment. And not just think about it, but actually follow through. I know sometimes, we tend to watch something or read a book or read an article and we have like these really good ahas or like an insight really lands for us. And then we don't do anything about it. So it's like, I just spent 5 minutes reading an article or 30 minutes listening to a podcast, had a great revelation,
Yeah.
but poof, it just went away. And so that's ROI out the door. That's your time that you invested that you got zero return out of. And you got gold in there. You actually were given gold in that time and you turned the gold into coal. So how can you turn your gold into platinum right now? Where is the support you need right now? And just, you're a leader, create it for yourself. I can give you 100 other steps. If you want to contact me directly, I can give you 100 other avenues and steps to look at and actual tools and resources. Yet if the bare minimum that you're going to do today is just take a look, how could I support myself today? Or because I listened to this, what's one thing I'm going to do to support myself? Who am I going to talk to? What am I going to even write down and debrief for myself to support myself? How can I shift feeling wrong or not good enough into just understanding that's not true? And the facts are A, B, C, and just list out what the facts are, what the actuals are. And Avetis, I
This
can
is
keep going on
awesome.
and
No,
on
no,
and on
no.
about
It's
that.
really deep and good, and that's what we want, right? We don't need surfacey stuff. It's really good. There's a lot of talk about imposter syndrome and all this stuff. And I really took it very lightly. I was like, come on, what does that even mean? But I've realized there's a little bit of that in all of us, right? Especially as things don't go as well as we had hoped, so on and so forth. What advice do you give to leaders who feel a little bit of that imposter syndrome despite their success a lot of times?
You're doing it to yourself. No one, no feedback, no external factor is creating that in you. You're actually choosing that for yourself. And that's why we call it compromising your self-worth. It's not low self-worth. You have all the self-worth you need. You're just choosing to compromise it by focusing your attention on what went wrong, what didn't work out. When there are ways to keep yourself neutral or keep yourself empowered, but neutral is a big win if you could stay neutral. Getting up into the empowered, creative, innovative space is bonus, but really just knowing there is no right or wrong. It's just data, it's just feedback. And how you interpret it is going to generate your experience, whether you feel good about it or you feel terrible about it. It's not because someone said you're terrible. They can't decide how you feel about you. Their external feedback has nothing to do with the way you feel about you, the way you treat yourself, the way you handle yourself. And again, the biggest gift I ever learned is all of that is neutral until I assign it a meaning. And so if I assign it, oh, I'm a piece of crap, or oh, I'm terrible, oh, I overpriced, I underpriced, I'm just doing that to I beat myself up when I can take that same time and energy and get creative, get innovative, get resourceful, get resilient, whatever it is, in gear, because some of us like to, wallow in that. So yeah, it's just a matter of knowing you are doing it to yourself. No one's doing it to you. No one's making you feel bad. I could say that over and over again. No one is making you feel bad. Sure, there are abusive people out there. There are people trying to kill your vibe, but only you can do it at the end. Just think of our monks and our Buddhas and, that's the ultimate. And listen, none of that is easy. Staying neutral and being in a space of that's just neutral information, it's just data coming through. It's not easy because for me now I'm 49. That's a lot of unlearning and conditioning that, thank gosh I didn't find this work when I was 49. But even, when new things hit me, when people say things, I'm like, oh, but then I'm like, oh, that has nothing to do with me. That has to do with them. I could let it have something to do with me if I let myself interpret it as something is wrong.
I've seen people even create their own world where something's not even about them and they take it upon them. It's not even about them at all, and they take it and they carry that weight, which is such unnecessary baggage. One of the things,
Avetis, we call that the victim mentality. You're victimizing, you're taking something that has nothing to do, and you're victimizing
yourself. And how does someone deal with that? I mean, that's we need another 2 hours
just
for that.
Knowing it has nothing to do with you until you make it have everything to do with you. You can use it. You can use it to workshop some scenarios, but at the end, when you put a period, it has nothing to do with me, period. Oh, that was useful to go through a scenario or workshop, a conversation I had or I'm about to have, but just at the end of it, it has nothing to do with me. I am worthy, I am valuable, I am enough. And fill in smart enough, old enough, young enough, whatever the enoughness is.
You're like a corporate therapist, basically, it sounds like.
That's why we have a couch in every office. I mean, it's not actually, but I am personally trained to go there, but that's awesome. Not where I take people.
That's really cool. Tiffany, this has been enlightening, really, really great and different. I told you when we first met, I said, there's if I could be honest, coaches are a dime a dozen. Everybody's a coach. I get 17 people emailing me a day wanting to coach me. They don't know who I am, what I do, what I need coaching on, but everyone's a coach. But I feel like you approach things in a very, very unique fashion, very, very unique way, very authentic way. And I genuinely think especially when people are struggling. This is real. This is painful stuff. So you got to deal with it before it kills you.
Yeah.
You've been incredible. How do people find you to potentially bring you on as their coach or their company's coach? Tell us. How do we find you?
Yeah, so you can find us at evolveeq.com or selfworthadvantage.com. And if you just want to find me on LinkedIn, quick chat,
Awesome.
Tiffany
Thank you so
Houser.
much for being here, Tiffany. Appreciate you. This is great.
Yeah, thank you, Avetis, and thank you to everyone listening today.
And that brings us to the end of another great episode of the Tech Leaders Playbook. I want to thank you for joining us and hope you took away some valuable insights to apply in your professional journey. Don't forget to subscribe on your preferred podcast platform so you don't miss out on the next great conversation. I promise it'll be good. If you enjoyed today's episode, we'd appreciate if you could leave us a review. Your feedback not only helps us improve, but also help others discover the podcast. Better leaders mean better working environments. Better working environments leads to happier people. Remember, a rising tide lifts all boats. I'm Avetis Antaplyan, and this has been the Tech Leaders Playbook. Keep leading, keep learning, keep giving, and I'll see you on the next one. Until then, stay inspired, my friends.